Greetings, everyone, and welcome again to the Englewood Political Symposium. We are now in the Aldermanic Forum for the 15th Ward. And so, I just want to remind you guys that we need your questions. So please, I think you guys got your cards, or if you haven't, there are ushers in the aisles. Please submit us a question so that we can ask the candidates up here. Currently, there are 10 precincts out of 24 in West Englewood, which leaves 41% of registered voters. And we're talking about the 15th ward. This is the second highest ward of Englewood voters. And I am going to introduce the candidates for today. First, Adolfo Mondragon. He is a civil rights attorney and a candidate for alderman of Chicago's new 15th Ward, representing West Englewood, Gage Park, Back of the Yards, and Brighton Park. Next up is R.A.G.E, a Democrat, 17 years City of Chicago city clerk employee, and candidate for the 15th Ward of Alderman. Next up, Otis Davis Jr. He began living in the West Englewood Back of the Yard community for the past 30 years. He is pastor and a U.S. veteran, a businessman, and an LSC member for the past 20 years. Dr. Rafael Yanez is a crime prevention specialist with the Chicago Police Department and is the founder and president of Union Impact Center, a local nonprofit that focuses on providing youth with after-school activities, including athletics, arts, academics, and career guidance. Rafael Yanez has been active in the Englewood, Back of the Yards, Brighton Park, and Gage Park communities for over the last decade. A dedicated community leader, he has been endorsed by State Rep. Esther Golar and Jesus Chuy Garcia. And next is Eddie L. Daniels. He is a building engineer for New Hope School on 64th and Washtenaw, and he is running for 15th Ward Alderman. Welcome. Thank you. The first question comes from the audience. After each of the candidates gets 2 minutes to introduce themselves to the audience. You have 2 minutes each for opening statements, and we will start with Mr. Mondragon.
Afternoon, everybody. As you heard, my name is Adolfo Mondragon, although you can pronounce it the way it's pronounced in English, Mondragon. It's although it's a rare name, you could remember it because it has dragon in it, so Mondragon. In any case, the 15th Ward is comprised of communities that have been historically neglected, that are struggling. And so more than any other wards, we need a candidate that is the best, not a mediocre person to run our ward, because the problems here have been getting greater and greater over the years, and the task here is harder than in most of the other wards of the city of Chicago. And I believe that I am that candidate. In fact, I'm proud to say that just a few days ago, the Chicago Sun-Times, who vetted all of us and interviewed all of us collectively, gave me their warm endorsement, their strong endorsement. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself in order to give you an idea. I'm a lifelong member of this community. I was born and raised in the Back of the Yards. I've lived the last 28 years in Brighton Park. I am someone who went through the Chicago public school system, and then I went to Yale and the University of Chicago, where I'm proud to say that one of my mentors and professors there was Barack Obama back when he was just a humble state senator. And I've dedicated my life to public interest. I've been an attorney for the last 13 years, and everything that I've done in my track record has been devoting and giving back to the community. So by the end of this, I hope you give me your vote, and thank you for coming out today.
Hello, my name is R.A.G.E, and I agree, we have been, the 15th Ward has been neglected for quite some time now, and I believe I'm the best candidate to represent you all, specifically because of the experience I've had at City Hall, drawing upon many resources that we definitely need and bring them here to the community. I was endorsed by the Chicago Federation of Labor, and I do plan on working with them to get more of our residents on the union payroll. I was just endorsed also by Father Mike Flager from St. Sabina. I've known and worked with him since 1990 when I attended Quigley Seminary South. He fought very hard to keep that open, and I appreciate it, and I've been working with him ever since. So we do need to pull together and work to make sure that we get our voices heard. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Otis Davis, Jr. I've been a part of the back of the yards, West Englewood community for the last 30 years. Since that time, I have pastored, served this community in terms of reaching out to troubled youth. We have a facility whereby we go out, reach these young men, those that ex-felon, give them a second chance to be able to get a skill and make a contribution back to society. I have been a part of local school council, which I think it uniquely prepared me for city council because it is a miniature city council in terms of legislation, in terms of distribution of funding. Worked with the second largest high school in Chicago. I was chairperson for over 10 years. Also, I a businessman, own a business. I understand the nature of business, understand the nature of the heart of the business person, the need to create businesses in our area to help entrepreneurship. I am committed. My life has prepared me for this time. Graduated Chicago State University, a master's degree in urban ministry. I feel that my passion, and I think that you have to have a passion for the people. And I'm here today because I have a passion. And I feel with that passion we can make things change in this area. Been endorsed by the Black Contractors Union. I've been endorsed by another black slate. So by my understanding the Hispanic community, understanding the African American community, I think it makes me uniquely qualified to take this community to another level and to make the changes necessary to take us to a new level in the upcoming decade. Thank you.
Hi, first of all, I want to thank everyone for being here and all the organizations that put this event together. My name is Rafael Yanez, and I have 2 teenagers, and been with my wife for 15 years. And my story started taking an impact when I was 9 years old in Pilsen. Coming from Mexico, a kid came to me and said, "What you be about?" And to be quite honest, I didn't speak English, so I didn't understand what he was saying. I thought he was asking me for what was my favorite soccer team, right? But my point is this: I understand very quickly how divided and segregated our city is. They're very, very diverse, but very segregated. I moved to the back of the yards as a young dad. I was just graduating from high school with my son, right? And became a police officer, started working in Englewood at midnight. And I remember one time when I was in Roseland, and I was in a unit, I was in Roseland, and this gentleman said to me, he said, "I was shot, the bullet went through my mouth and it went through my ear." And then that following week, a gentleman who told me that he was run over, a gun was put in his head, and it didn't go off. I understood there that I needed to do more. That's why I started a not-for-profit, Christ-driven organization in the back of the yards. We started with 7 kids. We have now more than 300 kids. We started soccer program, Salvation Army. We started bringing coaches to teach, having clinics of soccer programs. I've been teaching officer-friendly program in Henderson, Earl O'Toole. I had a program in Harper High School. And in every school in Englewood, I've been there managing programs, and having public safety presentations with our parents. I've been in public service for many years, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. We're done with having puppets, and we're done with having rubber stamps.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Eddie Daniels, and I have a story like everyone else, but what I want to come with is I've been the ward superintendent for the 15th ward for the last 7 years. I know exactly what the problems were and what they are now. That's of the original 15th ward. And straightening up, you need some insight. You need some experience. Anyone can tell you from the outside, oh, how easy it could be. But it's difficult when you have someone up above you who's stopping you from doing some of the things. I was one of the individuals who helped put the blades on the front of the trucks for the superintendents in order to make sure that they started going down the street and started trying to help clean ways for you to actually be able to get out. I was the one in 2011 when they had that big storm without an assistant move the snow from the 15th ward. I showed exactly what I could do, and I'm willing to do it again. I have mentored 2 individuals from Lincoln Challenge to try to get them through. They were troubled individuals. It's nothing to come back and try to help people. That's what you do. We all have to be able to share whatever we start to get ourselves up, we got to pull someone up. I served in the Army for over 25 years. I'm a leader. NCO Academy, Advanced Academy, I've been there. I have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from IIT. So I'm just not a pushover. I'm a person who's been in every place that you could be in. I served with copiers before. I've also have a wife of 34 years, a dedication. I have 3 sons that I helped put through in school. All 3 of them have a degree. I'm proud to say that I know how to work with the youth and bring them back together, as well as work with the police to try to help them to stop doing everything.
Thank you, gentlemen. So we're going to get right into it. And a very simple but necessary question comes from the audience, and I'm going to pose it to each of you. It goes, what does an alderman do? Mr. Mondragon, you can start first.
Well, at the basic level, an alderman runs a ward service office, and basically they're the ones who are in charge of making sure that everything from garbage pickup to the lights being fixed to you getting an extra trash can gets taken care of. And no matter what lofty goals you have in terms of changing policy in the city or bringing in things to the community, at the very basic level, everyone in the city expects their aldermen to do their basic job, which is to make sure that the ward is clean, safe, and that their ward office gives them good service in terms of when they want parking permits, etc. Now, once that's at the basic level, but your alderman also is a legislator in the city council, and they're responsible for making sure that the budgets not only get passed, but that they are good budgets for the city of Chicago, that money gets allocated to your community, that you pass laws that are that make sense, that are not going to be draconian, that are not going to affect individuals of certain parts of the city disparately. And so that's the other aspect of what it is.
I would like to remind you have 1 minute for your responses. What does an alderman do?
An alderman basically does everything that Mondragon said, Mondragon, but to expand the duties, I would also include lobbying on behalf of the citizens at the state level. Many of the corporations have their own lobbyists that they pay. Some of the citizens don't have a voice in Springfield. I've been in Springfield. I know my way around Springfield. I would also include lobbying on your behalf on Springfield issues, namely like the minimum wage, raising the minimum wage. I would also include that into the duties of the alderman.
question. First and foremost, an alderman is a civil servant who represent the people of their particular ward. They're not a rubber stamp. They're not manipulated by lobbyists. They are a person with conviction that speaks out and let the voice of the community that they represent be made known, irregardless to how popular it is, irregardless to who may not like it, but you are a civil servant who speaks and represent the constituents in which that elected you to that office.
I will also add that the alderman should be a coalition builder. Also to make sure that our policies that are inclusive to all the community, that are equitable and are also sustainable, because very often we have ordinances that are not inclusive to every corner of the ward. We have to make sure that the alderman is also accessible, reliable, and accountable. The taxpayer should know how that tax money is being used, how that is being spent, and having 6 schools closed in Englewood doesn't say much about the leadership in certain locations, right? Having a mental health close, having $5 million cut in a budget of certain high schools. So we have to be real and understand that the alderman is an employee of the taxpayers.
Yes, an alderman is to help make the laws here, to help you get what you need. They're also supposed to be those individuals that you should be able to touch. You should be able to call, get the assistance that you need. They should be the one that you count on, because that's who put them in office. You're the voice, and they should just be echoing your voice. They should make sure that any kind of laws or anything that's coming into your neighborhood, it comes to you first before it's implemented. So therefore, that you will have a fair share in deciding what goes in and what comes out. They have to also make sure that whatever is due to you, that 1.3 million, should make sure it's coming back to you. Put those street lights out. Change those garbage cans so those rodents won't be there. Do whatever is necessary to make sure that your location is just as good as anyone else's. They have to be in good with the people, part of the grassroots.
Our next question comes from the Englewood Votes team, and we're going to direct it to Mr. Reyes. If elected, what policy, legislative, and/or service goals will you focus on achieving during your term? Please be as specific as possible.
Well, one of the major things is one of the best crime stoppers is a job. So what I want to do is bring jobs to Englewood. Again, having been endorsed by the unions, I want to work with the unions to bring any infrastructure construction that goes on here. I want to make sure that local residents are hired, so they can start building up job skills and go on to other companies. Bringing in jobs is the number one thing that's going to stop crime. Bringing in jobs is the one thing that's going to bring stability to our neighborhoods. And that's the number one agenda that I have to improve the lives of the 15th Ward.
The next question comes from the audience, and it is directed to Mr. Davis. The new 15th Ward is a very diverse ward. What will you do to bring the Black and Latino communities together to bring about positive change in the ward? Or how will you ensure our diverse voices are heard?
First of all, I have been a partner with the Latino community. I've served as a president of the Hispanic Pastoral Association. I have worked together on the local school council at Daly Academy, majority Hispanics. I understand their voice, I understand their concern. Curie High School as well, I worked there as chairperson. I majority Hispanic school. So most of my ministerial life has been working collectively with the Hispanic community. I understand their concerns. And also, I took the time out to learn to speak the language. Yo aprendí español en la universidad, and took the time to learn the language and to be able to mingle and understand their concerns. So African Americans, Hispanic, Black and brown community, together, working together, we can do it and we can make a difference.
The next question comes from the Englewood Votes team, and it is directed towards Mr. Yanez. Many constituents in our community complain they don't believe their voices are heard by political leadership, or even worse, ignored. Issues such as recent school closings and traffic cameras have highlighted those feelings of powerlessness. The community overwhelmingly objected to them, yet witnessed leadership proceed in spite of those objections. What plans have you made to ensure that your constituents feel heard and needed? Please be as specific as possible.
That same question is one of the reasons why I decided to run for alderman, because many times as residents, we feel that we're not being heard. I'm very proud to say that I started an initiative here in Englewood that is still going on. It's called the Expanded Anti-Violence Initiative, where community stakeholders meet on a monthly basis to make sure that accountability is in the middle of the table. What I'm planning to do right away is to start a steering committee with different committees related to the issues that we're facing: an education committee, a trouble building committee, a community engagement committee, a community development committee. We have to make sure that community leaders are part of those committees and chair those committees, so there is a participatory process.
The next question comes from the audience and is for Mr. Daniels. What essential changes must be made immediately to bring about quality education in the Chicago public school system?
Well, quality education comes from the interaction of, first of all, making sure that the students have the books early. You talk about the North Side and about them, how well they're doing. You have to make sure that our children have the books as soon as possible. The new books, not the old ones, not copies. They need to have the essentials. And if they have the essentials, then you have to make sure that they have the time to be able to put in the work. The participation of the parents is essential. We need to put something either online where they either be a part of the tutoring or be a part of the program, so they can be able to help their children at home as well. It's essential for us to get together. So that's the reason why I want to make sure we all get together and put something for our children to make sure that they get what they need. I'm sorry, but I was looking at the time too.
All right. The next question is from the audience, and it is for Mr. Mondragon. What do you plan to do about abandoned buildings and vacant lots throughout the Englewood and West Englewood communities?
Well, I think that the first thing that we have to do, and it's a very difficult legal problem, I'm an attorney, and so I have a little experience with this, is that we have to be able to make the owners of those properties accountable, even if it's a long, dragged process going through court. So we have to be able to find out who these individuals are and going after them. Outside of that, we could, government has the power of eminent domain, and we could take some of those lots, those homes, and take them for purposes to better the community. And once we do that, we can redevelop those areas and come up with ideas with the community to either put in businesses or new homes and affordable housing for people, or recreational areas for our kids, something along that nature.
Our next question comes from the audience, and it comes from one of our youth. And the question goes, and I pose it to any or all of the candidates. What can you do to build the community for the children that don't have anyone to take care of them or don't have anywhere to go? Again, this question was submitted by a youth in our audience today.
First of all, I would do the thing that I've demonstrated through my time as serving the people in this community. And first of all, I raised 4 sons in this community. And in doing that, I was able to take these sons, work with them, coach. I was a coach in the city park. And working with my sons, I reached out to other young men who was troubled and empowered them with letting them know that they are somebody special. And in doing that, we were able to help these young men. One of them is a deputy sheriff in the Cook County Sheriff Office. And I feel that we can build centers. We need to build recreational centers in our communities so that they have places to go and not to be involved in the streets.
I think we have a tremendous opportunity. We have Harper High School, we have Lindblom High School, we have Back of the Yards High School, Kelly High School, and Gage Park High School. We have to make sure that we build a youth leadership group and work in partnership with organizations, for example, R.A.G.E, Teamwork Englewood, Growing Homes, and a lot of the organizations that already are stakeholders, and make sure that we're not only thinking about mentoring, but about trade and jobs and skills that are going to give them opportunities to have professional careers. We have hospitals, we have schools where they can shadow and follow a professional. We have to step up to the plate and make sure that we become what we will do with our children. That is the question. We have to step up to the plate because there's a lot of young people out there that need us, and I'm planning to be that alderman for them.
Okay, thank you for posing that question. One thing that's important is, young man, you have to, or whoever, you have to come forward. You have to let people know what your situation is. And then someone has to come forward and also say, here's what we have available. Now, troubled children are everywhere, and we find them in areas where we least expect it. They struggle. You can see some of the things that they are struggling with. They come to school, they're hungry. They come to school and their clothes are not clean. When you see this, someone needs to turn over and say, listen, is there a problem? You have to talk to them. They have to also come forward and then say, you know something, I need better education. So therefore, there's Lincoln Challenge, which is there available for those individuals who can stay on campus, who don't have to go home to a troubled area. But you have to also be willing to give that kind of respect. It's a soldier area, but that's the way it is.
I would definitely say that that's where many of the churches would step in. The funding could come from the city government, but I would prefer churches stepping in, also after school programs for kids. It's a matter of fighting for the funding. You have 49 other aldermen that are fighting for the same amount of money. There are ways to get more money out of it. One way is you got to find it where it's at. There's one of the funds called Finance General, where there's money stored there for just in case purposes. Well, many of the aldermen don't know this, but that's where you got to look for the money. Get more into the after-school programs, get more into the teenage jobs, and fund a lot of these churches so they could have a say in the welfare of the child. I would rather have a church and a pastor, grow up with different children and having groups grow together, learning the basics of life.
There's a lot of ideas that could address this problem, but one of the ideas that I got maybe about 10 years ago, I spoke to Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates Jr., and he was writing a book about the African American community at the turn of the millennium. And he basically said that, he was looking at the divide between the underclass and the black community and the middle class. And why is it that under the Clinton years, there was a vast expanse in the middle class, but there was still this huge gap? And he basically said that what the community needs, in particular the African American community, but this could apply to the Latino community as well, is that we need mentorship. We need powerful, strong leaders who've made it within our community to come back. This could be done cheaply through the public schools. Go back to those people who have succeeded, who have come out from our neighborhoods, come back and lend a helping hand and teach these individuals the tools that they need to succeed.
Our next question comes from the audience, specifically from the Black Youth Project 100. And it is a two-part question, and it is open to any of the candidates on the stage. How will you handle the racist and discriminatory practices of police? Would you be in favor of a civilian-based police review board that investigates police crimes and police offenses? Mr. Daniels.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Because I was stopped once before, and the police had put a gun to my head. And I didn't know what it was all about out at O'Hare. And they tried to cover it up and say, oh, the wrong license plates, anything. And when they came back, we found out after doing a further investigation, it was a police officer that was there. He wasn't on duty. He had no business doing it. We also need to make sure that we come to the roll call. The alderman needs to go to the roll call before the policemen actually go out on duty and be able to talk to them about what they're about to go up against. And give me another.
Well, I can tell you that as a police officer, I also experienced incidents growing up where I was stopped by a police officer, and similar to your incident, I was put a gun in my face, right? And that was one of the reasons why I decided to become a police officer. And many know that I didn't get endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police being a police officer, because I am ready always to ask for accountability, professionalism at all levels. As a police officer, I can tell you that I will make sure that we give also opportunities for our young people to hopefully one day become police officers, and make sure that we have always striving to do the best and always asking for accountability and professionalism on the table.
Yes, to answer your question, I would support a civilian police review board for the simple reason that, and especially during now, that we had the situation in Ferguson, Missouri, situation in New York, the constant conflict between, and especially the African American and the Latino community with the police officers discriminating and racial profiling in different situations. So I definitely support a civilian-based board, and that also the commander should be able to meet with the aldermen be able to express their concern for the community. I would pull together a review board of people that live in the community that could speak to the issues that's going on in that community, that their voices could be heard so that they can know that we do have people that's concerned.
I would definitely support a civilian police review board, definitely. But I would also increase the upper echelon of the commanders to be more minorities, so they could dictate to those underneath them how to treat the individuals, how to treat people when they pull them over for a stop. Then I would also fight for more minorities to be recruits, so that there's always a pool of minority police officers that are ready to take on leadership roles as sergeants, lieutenants, commanders. That's what we need as well, so that it could be representative of everybody, and you get to know the police underneath you, and they get to aspire to be just like you, being fair to everybody no matter what color they are.
I too would support a civilian board, but I also like to note that as an alderman, particularly in a ward like this that has communities that has historically suffered racial discrimination, by the police department, and we have a history here in the city of Chicago with people like Officer Birch, who like tortured many people in the 80s and 70s. With my background in criminal defense work, I used to be a state appellate defender. I understand very deeply that it's very easy to laud a police officer when they do something good, and we could all do that. But we need someone in office that could also advocate for the community when someone from government, particularly in the police department, does something wrong. Someone who has the right and courage to be able to address those issues and talk plainly and honestly about them, and be an advocate for the community when government does something wrong to their own citizens.
The next question comes from the streets of Englewood. Please turn your attention to the screen for our next question for our candidates. I think he said he wants a speed bump on 60th and Laughlin because they're near a school. Would anyone like to respond to that question from the street? Mr. Daniels, can you pass the mic, please? He asked for a speed bump, I believe, at 60th and Laughlin for a school there.
Oh,
A
okay.
speed bump.
Absolutely. After we would study the situation and see exactly what the need is concerning, he said a speed bump. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, not only in that block, but whatever block, and we would definitely do an exhaustive study and to find out what areas that they do have reported people that are speeding, and we would let citizens come and let us know, tell us what the problems are, because you live there, you are the voice of that community, and aldermen should listen to the voice of the community and hear what the people have to say. So not only in that particular area, but any area where there's a problem, there's a concern, and there's been excessive abuse of people speeding in the neighborhood.
I'm just, I'm tired of seeing the inequality in our neighborhoods. And to be clear and just to be honest, if we compare, for example, I go to Bridgeport and then I see streetlights in some corners and we're fighting to get a speed bump. That's why we need an alderman that is going to make sure that brings results to the table, is that not afraid to bring that fight to city council and make sure that we say enough is enough. It's a fight that we have to be willing to take.
Thank you. Pretty much is that a speed bump around the school is pretty much a done deal. All you really need is the 3/4 of the block to actually want the speed bump. But because there's a school there, they could implement one there. They just have to bring it to the alderman. 60th and Laughlin is now part of the 16th ward and not the 15th ward. But of course, any alderman can go and advocate along with the 16th ward to make sure that it's done. That's what you need. It's safety. And anyone who wants to have safety should make sure that the numbers are there. I'm surprised there's not more individuals that's here. This is critical. This is critical. We're the level at who's going to represent you. And if that individual ain't going to speak out and do whatever they're supposed to do, you're going to be in trouble because they don't know what to do. Let's do it.
Well, I agree. There should be around every school there should be speed bumps for the safety of the children. And it's not even a fight that you have to really fight at City Hall. That's simply the alderman prioritizing that. They get that $1.3 million for infrastructure, for streets, sidewalks, alleys. That includes speed humps. That's just simply the alderman not prioritizing what needs to be done in the ward, and one of the main reasons why I decided to run. But that should be right off the bat around schools, around churches, speed humps to slow down the drivers. But that is not a fight that you have to go bang at City Hall. That's just the alderman not prioritizing.
No, I agree with all these gentlemen. That's a gimme. That's easy. I don't know, it's indicative of just bad administrative leadership. the aldermen every year get that menu money, as Mr. Reyes is saying, and all of that is already allocated and priced out so that it's easily handled and budgeted by anyone who has, half the administrative skills of just, the ordinary person. So that's just indicative of the kind of neglect that we've had for so many years. Now, that money is finite. You can't expect that every year, every single place, but this is around the school. That's a gimme. That's very easy to handle.
The next question comes from the audience, and they ask, what would you do to bring the aldermen together to make Englewood a better and greater community? They're referring to the fact that we have 5 different aldermen in our community. What will you do to bring those voices together to create change in the community? And I open that up to whoever wants to answer it.
Well, again, having worked at City Hall for so many years, I've worked for 6 years on the council floor with the aldermen. So I know many of them. I get along with many of them. One of our neighbors here is Alderman Willie Cochran, who he said he's ready to work with me once I get in there. So it's just a matter of reaching out and calling them, asking them for their assistance, telling them what your goals are, what your plans are. Let them be the ones that say no if they don't want to work with you. But be open to work with anybody. I have no problem working with any alderman. I've worked with many of them throughout the 17 years I've been there, and ready to work with them on the council floor.
And likewise, I made friends with a number of the existing aldermen and indicated that they're willing to work together to make the 15th ward the best ward in the city of Chicago. I think that what we're going to have to do is that we need people from every community that could lobby their aldermen and to put a little fire under them to get them going and to do the thing they should do. But I feel that, with a strong mandate from the community, we can go into City Hall and we can mandate and we can ask for things that need to be done. We can talk to other aldermen and to help them to come together, to lock arms and to make this a reality and what we need to do, because we're not here for ourselves. We're here to serve the people. We're here to make government better. We help to bring safety in our community, quality education. I think that by getting bold with them and letting them know this is what we need to do, we'll do our best to make that happen.
Well, number one is that all the wards are boarded by another ward. So when it's boarded, those streets will end up not getting or half of what needs to be done on that particular ward. It needs to be talked with that particular alderman. So on the other side of the 16th ward, it's going to have to be talked with the 16th ward. I've worked with Tony Folks for the last 7 years and trying to make sure that she knew some of the things that you wanted. Some of the things got passed, some of the things went okay. But at the same time, any alderman that's in a position has to be able to work with you, whether you're working on the floor or whether you're actually coming out and you're working on the side. You need to talk to these individuals because this is what's needed. And we're not going to be able to get anything done as far as joining Englewood back together or any parts of Englewood in order to make it happen unless you join forces. So yes, I would work with everyone.
The reality is that we cannot afford to have a status quo. And to say that it's not a fight, it will be lying. This is a fight. And no one's going to come to us and say, here, you need this, I'm going to give it to you. No one's going to come to you. No one's going to come to me. No one's going to go to anyone and expect that that's what's the expected. We have to be willing to put pressure and to ask what is just. And I'm willing to do that. I think we have enough where we have the relaxed mindset of everything's going to be okay, just wait. 6 schools closed didn't happen overnight. 4,000 empty, abandoned buildings didn't happen overnight. 5 aldermen didn't happen overnight. This is a battle, and we have to fight.
I think it's common sense that, when you're trying to bring people together, that you reach out to them and that you work together when you can. But the world isn't as idyllic as that, and the fact is that if you know Chicago politics, you often find that within communities there's very decisive battles. I mean, I'm a Latino who grew up in Back of the Yards and Brighton Park, and I could tell you, and you all know about the divisiveness even within my own community between the 22nd Ward, for example, and the 25th Ward Alderman. And I think that what we need is a leader that is able to be a rational player, able to come together with individuals when there's a common goal and get it done, but also not be irrational and passionate and hold grudges and stick to those old infighting between individuals. Yes, we're going to disagree about things, but we could agree to disagree and not be, very bad about those things.
The next question comes from the audience. And I will pose this one to Mr. Mondragon and Mr. Reyes. And it goes, before running for alderman, what have you done to support Englewood?
Well, I've done volunteer work both at larger scale and smaller scale that has affected Englewood in some either direct or indirect way. On the larger scale, I've been a board member of non-for-profit organizations like formerly the American Lung Association, now the Respiratory Health Association, where I sat on the board for several years addressing issues that disparately impact our community, like COPD and asthma that affect our community. At the small scale, through the Yale Club of Chicago, we adopted now it's closed, the Yale Elementary School in Englewood. And I would go there for many years on my own time every week and meet with students and tutor them individually for 2 hours every day. So I've done both things on the micro level and the macro level that affect this communities, and that track record is there.
Pretty much the same with myself. I've worked a lot with the residents of the Southwest Side, namely in and around the Gage Park area. That's pretty much a microcosm of the ward in general. It has majority Hispanic, majority African American, and other meaning white in that area. It was majority Hispanic and Mexican. And the bringing city, state, and county services to those people for the past 17 years. And whenever they would need something, they would call me, and I would work with elected officials to bring those services, whether it be the alderman, the state rep, the state senators, making sure that the residents were taken care of. On the statewide level, I was part of the Illinois Legislative Latino Caucus Foundation, and we worked alongside the Black Caucus to promote policies that benefit the Hispanic and the African American community, mainly contracts, because all this funding is from. Sorry, stop.
And we like that question so much, we're going to go ahead and let the rest of the panel answer the question. So it goes again, before running for alderman, what have you done to support Englewood?
A good question. I served on this local school council here at Lindblom High School. I've worked with the youth in this area. I have helped and put together the church on 55th and 55th in Marshfield, Pastor Brooks. We were there at that ministry for a number of years, and we have went through the neighborhood. We've done a number of things in terms of bringing kids together. A number of the young men that's in our transitional home, a young men that failed, and we giving them a second chance to get back on their feet, to learn a skill, to contribute back to society.
When I was working here in the 7th District in Englewood, I was running all the preventive programs. In 2 years, we were able to teach 4,000 students in all the schools, 37 schools in Englewood. The following year, we picked it up to 8,000 students. So if you have a kid in Englewood, I can guarantee you that we were in their school. And also what I develop a meeting where all the principals in Englewood will come together with the commander, and we will talk about the after-school issues. We had issues where we had to change the dismissal hours of the schools. Also, I started soccer programs in Salvation Army, and I wanted to start the soccer program here in Lindblom Park, but they had a change in supervisor. So I've been here still to this day teaching officer-friendly programs, public safety presentations in the school.
Well, prior to being the superintendent for the 15th Ward for the last 7 years, I was the president of my block club. I changed the way that we looked at it. Instead of calling it a block party, I started calling it a block appreciation. Appreciation Day, that you show that you appreciate your block all during the year. You take the trash and you throw it inside the can. You teach the children. I used to go to the schools and show them properly how to take the garbage out. I continue to shovel snow out with senior citizens when I see them in my travel, because it's things that we have to do in order to help each other. I've raked vacant lots. I've moved high lift garbage next to people. I've taken calls on my personal call at any point in time that you needed a service. I immediately effected it myself, and I got back with you to see if you were satisfied with it. I've worked with each and every person who was out in the
And that means it is time for our lightning round. These are questions from the Englewood Votes team that require a simple yes or no. We have 3 questions. The first one goes, and we'll start with Mr. Daniels.
I can say it loud enough.
And go down, and everyone can answer the question, this first question. Would you support an independent and democratically elected school board representing school districts that are equitably apportioned?
Yes.
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 The next question. Currently, there are no Aldermanic ward offices in the greater Englewood area. If elected, do you commit to opening a ward office in Englewood? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 And finally, would you support a community-based advisory council for any current or future tax increment financing districts in your ward? Yes or no?
Yes, I would.
Yes.
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 Well, that is all the questions that we have time for today. At this time, we are going to let each of the candidates give a 2-minute closing statement. And we will start with Mr. Mondragon.
Well, as I was saying in the opening, there's a lot of problems in our community because we've been historically neglected. And again, we need someone who's from the community. I've lived here my entire life. I'm 40 years old. I was born and raised in the back of the yards. I've lived the last 28 years in Brighton Park. So I know firsthand the problems that have, developed over the years. But we also need someone who is the best suited, the best experienced. These gentlemen are all talented. They all have great track records. But I think here what we need is the best. I'm someone who grew up working poor in this community, went through the public schools, got all the way to Yale University, the University of Chicago, has dedicated his career to helping the public interest as a civil rights attorney, first at the State Appellate Defender's Office and then on my own. Have volunteer track record within this community, and I think that of all the individuals here, hands down, I'm the best experienced, the most educated, the one that has the personal ties to the community that are lifelong, and the one that is best suited to do this job. The Chicago Sun-Times says so, and I believe the Tribune will say so as well next week.
I believe this is a results-oriented position. I've been doing this type of work for 17 years, and you go out and ask the residents, what do they need? I'm actually dressed a little down right now because I was out there knocking on doors asking the residents what they need. And then you got to go and get it for them. I believe I'm the most qualified because I have been working at City Hall. I know how to work the system to get the results that are needed for our community. There is no time to be learning on the job. These individuals may take 2-3 years to learn their way around City Hall. I've been there, I'll get it done, and I'll get it done for you.
First of all, I've been in this neighborhood between back of the yards and Englewood, West Englewood, for the last 30 years. And my track record, I feel that I have served this community in the area of education, local school councils, which is a miniature city council. I served from Lindblom to Daly to Curie High School. I'm a businessman, understand the nature of the heart of the business person in entrepreneurship and developing entrepreneurs. I understand the need for quality education, that an alderman is a civil servant, that to provide safety for the community and the higher quality of education in our community. Last but not leastly, as a minister, I think I have the moral authority, and I have the moral authority that can bring about changes, and many of the changes are morally based in addition to the political part. But I think I bring that, I have that, I wear that hat. The churches are the biggest sleeping giants. I feel I can challenge the pastors to step up and to open up their doors and begin to serve the community and to help the people and to help these people to come out of the situation, the young men that's in gang, the school situation. Every church should adopt a school. So I bring that experience to this job that I can serve it, and more than anything else, I would consult God for his direction to help us and to bring us out of the situation that we're in. And so with your help and with your prayers, with my passion, we can make a change. We can make a difference in this community. Thank you.
It is very clear that we have two options. We have one option that is the status quo, rubber stamps and puppets, and we have two options. The second option is to have a leader that is willing to fight for our community. I am not looking for a job. I'm looking for a way to serve. Put me to the test. Put me to that challenge. Show me, I'll show you results, and if I don't, fire me.
Well, I've always said is that when you start something, you should finish it. If you start it, you finish it. I've been out there, and none of us is aldermen, so it's kind of difficult for us to say what we're going to do when we get there. But we know good and well, at least I know what's out here, because I spent the time out here 7 years dealing with the alleys, dealing with your complaints on 311, those individuals who didn't respond to you, giving you the response that you needed. I've asked you to call me. I told you, just keep calling me, because it doesn't make a difference. I'm going to get back with you. It's just a lot of people calling me, and I need to make sure I give you the kind of attention that you need and the respect that you need in your neighborhood. Our problem is some of the things that we don't get at this level. And we don't get it because of the simple fact we don't have anybody who's actually willing to fight against somebody, who's willing to speak up. Yes, they're talking about the rubber stamp. Never been one. Had trouble all my life. And gonna continue to have trouble because I know good and well it's hard for me to keep my mouth shut because I speak the truth. And I will continue to speak the truth because you need somebody who's gonna speak the truth and not gonna tell you no lie or hide behind something. We need to put them on Front Street, make everybody responsible for what they're supposed to be doing. When they do those 311 calls and then they say that they did this, we're gonna find out who did it and what did they do to make sure that it's done. That's what you want. You want somebody who's gonna hit your level, the needs and stuff that you need, also be able to work to bringing in the economical growth and the development that you need to bring up your community. First, you gotta clean it up. And that's a hard job. But the only way you do it is you gotta roll your sleeves up and get down to it. And speak with everyone.
All right. Thank you very much for those closing statements, gentlemen. Thank you again for attending the Englewood Political Symposium.